They say you can only turn into a monster once, but what if you were born one and just forgot? This is Whispering Narratives. Tonight, we're not chasing the beast outside the door. We're following the one in the mirror. He wakes to water whispering against porcelain. It takes him a moment to realize he's breathing through his mouth because his nose is clogged with blood. The water in the motel bathtub is pink, so faint it looks almost deliberate, as if someone had tried to dilute the memory of violence. His skin itches, his knuckles ache, and there's a taste in his mouth like old coins. The ceiling above him is cracked, stippled with mildew. A fly circles the bare bulb. When he moves, the tub sloshes and he finds hair floating, dark, coarse animal, not his. He sits up too fast, his head buzzes. The air is cold. Outside the window, dawn filters through nicotine-stained curtains, painting the room in the color of bruises. His breath clouds the glass. On the counter near the sink sits a tape recorder, the kind used for depositions. It's still running. The tape spins. He doesn't remember pressing record. If I make it through this one, I'll listen back, his own voice says from the machine, raspy and uncertain. And maybe I'll know if I did it again. He stares at the red light blinking. It blinks in rhythm with his pulse. He turns it off. The room smells of wet fur and rust. When he stands, his legs tremble. His reflection in the mirror looks unfamiliar. Eyes sunken, skin pallid. His arms are covered in scratches that are too deep to be accidents. The nails on his right hand are torn, splintered at the ends, as though he's been clawing at something hard, something that didn't want to give way. On the table lies a folded uniform patch, U.S. Army, Miles Crowder. He doesn't wear it anymore, but it follows him like a dog that remembers better days. He picks it up, stares at the faded threads, then notices the motel key beside it. Room 9, a number circled twice. Beneath it, someone, maybe him, has scrawled a date, October 13th. But the calendar on the wall says October 17th. He's missing 4 days. Outside, the parking lot is empty. The asphalt glistens with rain. He can see his footprints trailing from the edge of the woods to his door, smeared like ink. Half of one print is human. The other half is not. Miles leans against the doorframe, hands shaking. Somewhere in the trees, a crow caws once and stops. The silence that follows isn't peaceful. It's watchful. He's been through combat zones quieter than this. He closes the door, locks it, then unlocks it again. Habit, paranoia, muscle memory. The mind keeps its own rituals long after sanity forgets why. He sits at the edge of the bed. His fingers trace the lines of an old scar on his shoulder, shrapnel once, now a raised crescent. A crescent like the moon. He checks his phone. No signal. The battery at 3%. In the gallery, one new photo. He opens it. A blur of motion, night vision green. Something crawling on all fours through trees. Its eyes glint. Its mouth, his mouth, open in a scream that isn't human. He drops the phone. It clatters to the floor. His breathing turns sharp, chest tightening. He presses his palms to his temples, whispers to himself like a prayer. It's just the withdrawals. It's just the shakes. It's just another episode. But deep down, he knows the difference between chemical ghosts and something that leaves claw marks through motel drywall. He reaches for the tape recorder again, rewinds until the hiss of static fills the room. Then, his own voice, recorded sometime last night. If you're hearing this, Miles, you didn't make it through clean. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone, especially yourself. The wind rises. The curtains flutter. Outside, the morning sun hides behind clouds that look bruised with stormlight, and for a moment, a heartbeat, he hears it. A low, distant howl. Not far, not close. Somewhere just under the skin of the world. He tells himself it's an animal. A coyote, the echo of some truck on the highway. But his reflection in the mirror moves a second after he does, and it smiles. The clock on the microwave blinks 12-eyed in a slow, idiot heartbeat. The motel TV plays a nature documentary with the sound off. Wolves running through snow, their paws kicking powder into the cold air like spilled ash. Miles stands in the kitchenette with a towel around his waist and a tremor in his hands. The tremor is old. It knows his bones better than sleep. He lays out the evidence the way he learned in the service. Grid the field. Control the perimeter. Name every object and take away its power. 1 pocket knife, dull from concrete. 1 motel key on a plastic tag. 1 roll of athletic tape spattered with something brown and stiff. 1 notebook, spiral-bound, pages warped by rain. 1 dog tag looped on black paracord that is not his own. He sets the tag apart. The letters are ghosted by scratches and oxidation. Hail, Jonah. The birth date has been scraped, as if time could be erased with a thumbnail. In the bottom right corner, a shallow bite mark presses ovals into the metal, teeth too wide for a normal mouth. He presses his thumb there until the skin pales. The notebook opens to a page that smells like a shed. Flooded last spring. Lines, cross lines, names and arrows, dates circled in a compulsive hand. A paste of moon phases cut from a calendar and taped at angles. Some circles are crossed out, then circled again, like a man arguing with a future that refused to answer. Oct. 12. Tape the wrists, freeze the keys whiskey in the drain. Oct. 13. Call Vera. Leave everything on voicemail, no listening. Oct. 14. Iron nails in door jamb, mirrors bagged, no TV. Oct. 15. Do not sleep. He finds a voice in the margins. Slanting uphill, the handwriting of a man walking too fast. Shift happens with no moon. Do not trust sky. Trust breath. The breath is the metronome. He recognizes the voice. He hates the voice. It carries the cadence of the briefings that sent him out, night after night, into places where young men burned, their guilt under the barrel of a rifle. He flips forward. The pages are ragged. In one ripped section, a single phrase remains, cut off, as if someone tore the rest away to hide it. The red room how? He digs through the trash can, finds the ripped paper, damp and torn, pieced together on the counter, tape smoothing it into a scar. The full sentence returns with a quiet, triumphant cruelty. The red room howls when you lie to it. A cold stripe runs along his spine. The motel room is oatmeal beige with floral prints hung to calm the eye, but the bathroom door is painted a deep, bruised red. He thinks of ritual chambers in places he pretends not to remember. Rooms where men convince themselves color alone could keep the dark away. He thinks of withdrawal dreams, red crates, red maps, red ping of a laser against a wall. He hears the recorder again. His own breath piped back through a cheap speaker, a tight panting that rises and falls like something pacing a cage. He rewinds to the last clean moment and presses play. Day 4. No drink, no pills. Head rings, hands want, feet ache like they grew new bones. The sky is wrong, the moon is wrong. You are wrong, Miles. Hold the line. The tape clicks into silence. He dresses in the clothes in the chair. Jeans stiff with dried dirt, a black shirt with a tear across the belly, as if claws found purchase there. He slips the dog tag into his pocket, the edge biting his leg when he moves. Boots next, laces looped 3 times the way he learned to control blood flow in cold weather. He cleans the room like a man clearing a crime scene he will have to live inside. Sheets pulled tight, mirror covered with a towel. Curtains pinned to keep the morning from lying to him about the time. He packs the notebook, the tape recorder, the knife. He steps out into air that tastes like tin. The asphalt gives up last. Night's rain in a smell of oil and wet leaves. In the gravel beyond the lot, his tracks run toward the tree line. The stride length is wrong, long and loping, as if he borrowed a different set of legs for a few hours. The prints are smeared by a drag where toes should be. He follows them anyway, because forward motion is the last religion a soldier keeps. The path cuts through scrub pine. Sap bleeds amber from a gouge at shoulder height, a raw wound streaked. by something that took what it wanted. The gouge is wider than his hand. Threads from a red towel cling to bark. He thinks of the red door. He moves on. At a dry creek bed, he finds the first sure sign. Hair snarled on a low branch, black, coarse, longer than any dog hair he has ever seen. He runs it along his forearm. It lifts with static like a living thing reluctant to leave skin. He pockets it. Evidence. Mystery never stays mystery when you press your thumb hard enough. The tracks lead to a clearing scooped into the trees like a bowl. In the center, 3 white stones form a triangle. The shape wakes a stale memory. Defensive. Positions, corners that see each other. On the middle stone sits a Polaroid. The old film stock warms the picture into false safety. In it, Miles slumps on that same stone, head bowed, hair stuck to his forehead with sweat. A woman stands behind him, hand on his shoulder. The woman's face is blurred, as if the world did not consent to record her clearly. Across the bottom margin, someone wrote in an unsteady hand, "You promised." His mouth tastes of iron again. He looks up. The trees lean in, as if listening for excuses. His heart thumps hard enough to shake dirt. He feels the first itch then. Itching at his wrists where the tape residue clings. Itching along his gums like new teeth pushing the old ones out. Itching in the muscles low in his back. A hunger to bend, to drop, to find knuckles and earth and run. He breathes through it, and the itch breathes back, patient, like a familiar waiting at a door. He pockets the Polaroid and walks out of the clearing, careful not to step on the stones. Certain lines, once crossed, never uncross. The sky presses down, noon hides. A chill slides under his shirt and sits in his stomach like a stone. He reaches the motel and clicks the deadbolt closed with a soft, ceremonial sound. He spreads his finds on the bed. Dog tag, hair, Polaroid, notebook. He sets the tape recorder beside them like a witness with a shaky voice. When night comes, he tells himself he will not listen. He lies, and the red door across the room knows it. Darkness sidles in like a debt collector. The cheap lamp warms the motel room in a sickly honey that makes even the clean things look stained. Miles wraps his wrists in athletic tape and knots them tight enough to numb his fingers. He sets 2 iron nails in the door jamb. Old superstition for iron and moon. He does it anyway. Men who lived through certain nights inherit rituals the way others inherit china. He checks the calendar again. October 17th. The moon outside the window should be a fat, proud nothing. No glow pushes through the edges of the curtains. But the air carries a silvery taste he knows too well, a metallic sweetness that rides the soft hairs at the back of his neck and asks to be let in. He breathes, counts. A soldier counts when language fails. On 30 he stands, because sitting will turn into sleeping, and sleeping will turn into a dark run with other lungs. He sets the tape recorder on the table and presses record. The red light becomes a second pulse in the room, synchronized to a heart that beats in the walls. He speaks for the record, voice steady by force. He states his name, states his intention, states that he is in control. The words stand up like paper soldiers and pretend to hold a line. He takes out the Polaroid and props it against the lamp. The blurred woman watches him in fuzzy disapproval. You promised. Handwriting needs an apology it will not get. He picks up the dog tag, reads Hail, Jonah once more, and sets it on the recorder, a wait for words that try to float away. He closes the bathroom door. The red paint eats light and gives none back. The mirror inside wears a taped-on grocery bag, plastic stretched over glass, like a face refusing to breathe. He reinforces the tape, 3 strips at each corner, another across the middle like a cross. He does not catch his reflection, not even a smear. Relief lands in his body with embarrassing tenderness. He sits on the edge of the tub, with his knees apart and hands dangling between. He leans forward until his spine pops and keeps leaning until something cracks loud in his neck and the relief flares again. A habit from the service. Find the pain, make it speak, grind it down until it sounds like obedience. A low hum rises in the room, at first too small to name, like a refrigerator 2 rooms over. The hairs on his forearms lift one by one. The tape on his wrists constricts. He swallows and the sound rides his throat. A tuning fork inside skin. Window glass ticks. The red door mutters a tiny complaint. He stands before the complaint becomes a call. He stares at the doorknob, watches it fail to turn. His breath fogs in the bathroom where no fog belongs. The light in the ceiling begins to beat in a rhythm too slow to be electricity. He turns it off. The darkness eases something he never admits in daylight. His teeth ache. The ache starts deep in the sockets and presses outward. A slow push that asks for room. He runs his tongue along the front and feels a new edge where no edge lived yesterday. Pain reaches down into his hands and rotates bones. His nails tap the tub porcelain and the tap comes back as clicks from a different animal. He moves to the floor and curls against the vanity. The cold digs in. He lets it. Cold keeps edges sharp. Cold makes promises that fire never keeps. His breath slows until it becomes a metronome. The hum in the room slips under the beat and drags. Memories leak in sideways. Not memories of deserts or towers or roadblocks and checkpoints. Other streets, other nights. A bar upstate with deer heads on the walls and a jukebox that always skipped the second verse. A woman with hair that smelled like cedar. A man with a laugh that went high when he tried to pretend it went low. A promise to go dry after one last flood. The mind edits. The body keeps the director's cut. He feels the moment the body votes him off the island. The line shifts. The joints pull long. The jaw unlocks with a wet, muscular sound. Something old wakes and rolls its shoulders in his skin. He hears it not with ears, but with the bones of his face. It is not a word. It is a presence clearing. Its throat. He places his palm on the red door and the door is cold, and then it is warm, and then it is a pulse that does not belong to wood. The paint smells like iron oxide and old storms. His hand leaves a print that looks too wide. He slides to the floor and rides the change like a wave he will not pretend to surf. Breath in, breath out. A stretch that becomes a tear that becomes a growth. Nerves become wires. The wires sing. The hum becomes a chord. The chord finds his spine and plays it like a bow. The tape from the recorder creaks from the other room. Voices climb its plastic ladder. His voice and another voice braided together. One comforting, one amused. The amused one lives in bone. He crawls to the tub and climbs in. Porcelain braces his shoulders. He pulls the shower curtain closed with a trembling hand and anchors it in his fist like a soldier gripping a strap on a helicopter rail. The curtain clings to his face when he breathes. He breathes anyway. Somewhere outside the bathroom, the TV shows wolves again. Wolves run because running is the shape their souls take when the air is clean and the moon makes promises. He lets the soundless images roll behind his eyelids as the room hum rises and rises until the calendar in his head blows a fuse. The night stretches long and thin, and something that wears his scars like decorations takes the room. He wakes with jaw pain that feels like an argument lost overnight. A thread of saliva ropes from tooth to floor. The bathroom carries a smell like warm pennies and wet fur left in a dryer too long. The curtain sticks to his shoulder. He peels it away and his skin comes with it in a flake shaped like a leaf. The flake is not human. He crushes it to dust under his thumb, and the dust smells like the wet seam of a river. He sits up slow. The red door stands where he left it, closed, sullen, innocent. He reaches for the mirror and feels the bag he taped over it, the plastic, gone slick with condensation on the backside, as if breath lived there and wanted out. He teases a corner loose. Plastic peels with a sound like a snake dragging scales over dry leaves. Behind it, weights the glass. His face lifts out of that square with its familiar map of old edges and old dents. The eyes carry blood in the whites like a secret. Lips purpled by micro-bruise, a nick at the ear shaped like a crescent moon. He tilts his head left. The reflection follows a beat later, and then snaps into place with a jitter like a frame lag on a bad stream. He freezes. The reflection holds, then blinks, then smiles a fraction too wide. The smile displays the teeth he feels in his mouth and a different set hidden under the first, as if one mask chose to wear another. He tastes fear like aluminum. He stands very still. The reflection breathes deeper than he does, shoulders rising as if the lungs inside the glass learned the room better. This is the part of the nightmare where men flee. He has run enough. He reaches for the glass but does not touch it. He leaves an inch of air between hand and surface. The air is cold. His palm sweats anyway. The awareness crawls up the back of his head and settles at the crown like a hand. The mirror is not a mirror. The mirror is a door he painted shut with tape. He sees past himself for a heartbeat and catches a hallway lit in bone white. At the end of that hall hangs a moon where a ceiling light should be. The bulb hums. A hum knows his name. His hand lowers. He retapes the plastic, slower this time, smoothing bubbles as if tucking a child into bed. The room exhale feels audible. He sits on the closed toilet lid. The knees begin to shake again. The recorder clicks in the other room. His voice speaks, but it is last night's register, lower and wet, window open. Smell of iron, no moon. Teeth wrong. Remember breathing. You are not hunted. You are the hunt, Miles. Accept what carries you. He moves to the door on legs too light. The tape machine sits on the table like a dog that did something in the corner and wants forgiveness. Beside it, the Polaroid curls at the edges. The woman's hand on his shoulder blurs into a smear that now looks like claws raking a black shirt. He would prefer a lie. The picture refuses. He presses his fingers to the dog tag in his pocket. Hail, Jonah. A memory pins him to the floor. Without mercy, a night behind a shuttered feed store. A man in a blue jacket with a laugh that rose at the end. Whiskey on breath, a promise said with teeth. A bite bigger than a game. A memory ends on a red door and a laugh that did not belong to anyone living. By afternoon, his mouth accepts coffee without treason. The taste brings him back to a human afternoon where traffic moves beyond the motel, and a boy practices trumpet 2 buildings over and messes the high notes with a gorgeous, stupid bravery. He drinks and lets the shaky peace settle. At 4 p.m., a knock rides down the hallway, not his door. Room 7, maybe. This corridor carries everything along its ribcage. He hears 2 voices, one soothing, one tired. He holds his breath without choosing to. The tired one says a name. The name is Vera. The name puts a small nail through his foot. He cannot walk it off. He flips the notebook to the first page again. Arct 13. Call Vera. Leave everything on voicemail. No listening. He calls the number written there. The numbers stuttering under his thumb as if the phone judged him. The line clicks and a voice answers without hello, like a woman stepping into a room where a fire has already started. Miles. He keeps his mouth shut. Talking will break whatever is left that the tape did not already take. You kept your promise last time, she says. Then you broke it. You wore the red room like clothing and told me it was a house. You left tape on the mirrors and told me it was a ritual. You said the moon didn't matter anymore, then you came anyway. He rests his forehead on the wall. The paint cools him in the way a sink cools a fever. Her voice shakes at the end of sentences, not from fear, from choosing the harder word. You have something of mine, she continues. Jonah wore it the night you both came. You kept it. Bring it back. His mouth moves. The first word feels like rust bleeding out of a pipe. Tonight, he says. No question, no plea, just a time-shaped stone he puts between them. She breathes like a diver before a cold plunge. Dusk, the chapel by the hollow. The line goes dead. He lets the phone slide to his thigh on the cord, like a sacrificed animal. He puts the dog tag on the table, smooths the chain until it lies straight. The red door looks brighter. Light does tricks at this hour. He stops believing in tricks. He dresses for travel and laces his boots like he might need to run and knows he should not. He covers the mirror again, even though he will not be here when the night tries the handle. He leaves the tape recorder running. Let whoever comes through this door hear what lives here. Let them run or let them kneel. He will be out in the world when the calendar lies again. The road to the chapel passes through a gash of cottonwoods that have learned to sway to traffic. The asphalt gives up to gravel, then to dirt that keeps secrets better. Miles parks beneath a dead billboard that once sold cigarettes to men who needed rituals and now sells nothing to no one. The dusk cool slides into his chest and wears his ribs like a harp. He walks the last half-mile with the dog tag in his hand, chain looped around 2 fingers the way a man keeps a rosary when he does not believe in prayer. The chapel's white paint peels in strips like old sunburn. The door leans open and lets the wind move the smell of damp wood and old promises out into the clearing. She waits on the front step, hair pulled back under a wool cap, jacket whose elbows shine from use, boots laced with the confidence of someone who burned fear off like fog. She is older than the blurred woman in the Polaroid and sharper, the kind of sharp that comes from using the blade on your own life first. Vera, he says. The name comes out steady. The name sits between them, like a live wire on wet pavement. She nods. Her eyes move over his wrists, his mouth, the nick on his ear. She counts things without making the numbers show. You brought it. He holds the tag up. The chain glints like watered steel. She takes it like a woman taking back a knife she loaned to a bad friend. She slides it over her wrist twice and lets the tag click against bone. The sound is small and final as a door locking. You kept it, she says. I told myself that meant something. Then I told myself it meant nothing. I am done telling myself stories that let me sleep. He stands in the doorway and the chapel breathes a chilly sweetness over him. Old flowers, old ash, fold-out chairs stacked to the rafters. He steps inside and the floor complains, then agrees to hold him. Candles sit blackened on a crate at the front. A bell hangs from a beam with a rope gone fuzzy from hands. The bell bears scratches that spell out prayers in a language older than the county. Vera watches his eyes find the bell. Jonah liked the sound, she says. He said it cut through noise like a blade through rope. He said it made the nights honest. He was with me that last night. Miles says it because this room demands offerings, and words are the only currency he still knows how to earn. He was, she says. No heat, no charity, just a brick laid true. He followed you out to the hollow. He said you needed someone to guard your sleep. He said the moon was an infection and he would lance it. The wind fiddles with the bell. It answers with a breath, not a ring. You both came back different, she says. You came back like a man learning a new alphabet with his teeth. He came back like a man who left part of himself in the dirt and was listening to hear if it still breathed. She steps closer. He smells cedar and old smoke, the kind that lives in hair through seasons. She touches the torn hem of his shirt, the clawed line. You made the red room in our garage, she says. You painted the door and told us it helped. You asked us to lock it from the outside, and you swore you would not break your own rules. Then the calendar lied and you came a night early. The door howled like a mouth. I heard my own name inside your voice. Jonah went in. He walked out with your blood on his face and all his teeth showing like a dog who finally learned what they were for. He never smiled in pictures after that. He laughed in the wrong places. He woke in the yard with dew on his back and mud in his nails. He said your name like an apology he enjoyed making. She closes her palm around the dog tag. The edge prints a new half moon in her hand. You left. He stayed. I listened to nights that split themselves on our roof. When it stopped, I told myself the infection burned out. I told myself the moon was a phase and phases pass. Then you called 3 days ago, voice dry as old bone, and said you were coming back with silence in your pockets. I do not believe in silence anymore. Miles swallows, and the swallow clicks, a small gear trying to lift a heavy door. He reaches into his back pocket and pulls out the Polaroid. He shows her the blurred face. She does not take it. She looks at it as if looking too long would turn it into a different story. That was the clearing, she says. The triangle stones. He said they made him feel watched by something that had the right to watch. We put a bell there too, he said it. Worked until he wanted it not to. He hears the hum before she does. He sees it roll across her skin in a flock of goose flesh. Evening folds into night, the way a wound folds into a scab. The bones inside his hands set themselves to a deeper key. The chapel grabs more of the darkness, and the darkness agrees to stay. Vera glances at the bell. If I ring it, you will not like me. I already do, he says. Something inside his ribs smiles with teeth. She takes the rope and gives it a jerk. The bell opens and lets a sound down like a cut. The sound cleaves the hum fights back. The bell peals again, and he sees dust leap from the rafters in tiny, delighted bursts. He breathes out through his nose, and the breath fogs in a room with no reason to be cold. He feels the itch in his gums rise like a promise. He bends at the waist as if tying a shoe, and the bend keeps bending, vertebrae clicking into new employment. The bell rings a third time and a fourth, a rhythm learned in older wars. Vera's eyes never leave his face. She does not step back. She does not step forward. She plants her boots and lets the floor make a friend of her weight. The red room is outside now, she says. Stand in it. Do not lie to it. He drops to one knee, nails ache against wood. His breath snarls without language. He puts his forehead to the floorboard that someone carved initials into 40 years ago, and the board answers with sap and church and dead lilies. He thinks of the voicemail he left her days ago. He thinks of his own voice trying to be a better man. He hears another voice under it that liked the taste of better men. When the bell stops, the silence rings as hard as any metal. They stand in it like two stones in a river. He looks up, a slow lift, the neck creaking, and meets her eyes. She does not look away. Tomorrow, she says, and her voice chooses to trust a thin bridge. We go to the clearing in daylight. We ask it to give back what it keeps. If it refuses, we make a trade. He nods. The nod feels like a man in a mirror choosing not to smile. Night learns his steps. The road back to the motel folds him into its same boring arms. He lets the radio hiss on a dead station because the hiss fills the car with a sound like waves arriving on a beach made of iron filings. The moon rides high. And wrong. A gray coin someone filed down and slipped back into the till. The motel lot holds 3 trucks and a sedan, with a tarp taped over the rear window. He walks past room 7. A blue TV haze leaks from under the door and paints his boots. A voice speaks too fast for comfort. He passes room 8 and hears someone laugh alone. His own door opens with a humble click. Inside, the tape recorder whirs and ticks. It has become a machine that eats nights and coughs up bones. He sits and listens to what he missed while he stood in a chapel and tried to fit his life into a bell. You think you sleep. That is his voice, and it is not. You think the floor holds you. The floor hires out to other things when you shut your eyes, Miles. The boards do not care who walks them. The calendar is a toy the sky lets you pretend to read. The breath is the only clock. Count it right and you live. Miss a beat and you become the song. The tape hisses into static. Under the static, footsteps circle. He turns the volume up. Circles continue. He hears his own breathing. Then a second pace, then a third, each with a different weight, as if the room borrowed bodies from older nights to make a chorus. The red door clicks open on the recording, and every hair on his arms lifts. The recorded air sighs. Something pads across the cheap carpet and puts a nose to the recorder grill. The intake of scent rattles the little microphone like a moth. He kills the tape. He prefers the silence he can see. He showers and watches brown streams snake to the drain. He leaves the towel on the floor, like a man setting a flag on a grave he will not remember long. He eats what he has, crackers and beef jerky and a candy bar with a melted center that tastes like a memory of sugar. He sits in the chair and lets exhaustion creep up his legs like a flood, polite at first. Then everything. The dream arrives on schedule with no promise to keep. A hallway of mirrors. Each mirror holds a different version of him at a different stage of damage. Some have all his teeth, some do not. Some wear hair thick as winter. Some show eyes that have not yet learned to avoid flash. He walks between them, and each reflection lags a beat, then two, then a full bar. He raises his hand, and the last one does not. It looks past him to something coming. He accepts what the reflection sees, because the body already accepted it. The dream ends on a red door, breathing. He jerks awake to the sound of a key turning. He sits up, with a body that remembers violence as an honest language. He crosses the room in 2 strides. He palms the knife off the table with the efficiency of a man who kept muscle memory in a holster. He presses an eye to the peephole. The hall shows itself empty with the aggression of a lie. His hand on the knob feels someone on the other side, not a person, pressure. The air pressing back against his palm, as if the hallway itself leans. He rests his forehead on the door, and the varnish smells like an old gym floor. The pressure eases. He steps back. The knob does not turn. He breathes out a laugh that does not reach his mouth. He returns to the chair and the recorder purrs, demonic and domestic. He lets it run and speaks into it with the voice of a man holding back a flood with a broom. He lists every object in the room again. He lists his bones as if inventory could save them. He says the names of men he carried and men he could not. He says Vera and Jonah and hears the recorder flinch. He stands and wraps his wrists again and again until the tape gives him a numbness that passes for mercy. He slides into the tub and curls. He does not draw the curtain. The bathroom light makes a small, yellow country around him, and he accepts citizenship there. The change arrives without ceremony, a tide with better things to do than announce itself. The bones in the hand become animals that cannot live together anymore. They fight for space and build a new neighborhood. The neighborhood howls in a language without verbs. The gums lift their skirts and make way for knives. The knees petition to bend backward. The petition passes. He accepts the will of the committee. He breathes through the part where his heart decides whether to beat faster or stop. It beats faster. It becomes a door someone pounds on with both fists. He lets them in. The room makes sounds it does not usually make. The towel rod snicks, as if someone tested it. The red door cracks at the hinge and then remembers it is a door and holds. A mirror sings in a thin voice, as if friction learned a hymn. He rides night like an animal rides a river. He climbs a bank made of his own back. He stands in the dark as a thing that has nothing left to argue about. He wakes against cold porcelain with a mouth full of hair. He coughs until his ribs measure. The room in little metronome taps against the tub. He stands and unspools tape from his wrists. The skin beneath is a mess of pink and crescent indentations. The crescents look like moons in a calendar that tells only one story. The sun sits behind clouds, thinking. He dresses in yesterday and steps into air that remembers how to bite. He drives to the clearing because repetition is the only way to find out if you are trapped. The triangle stones wait. In the center, a new Polaroid. A picture of the chapel bell with a dark figure under it. Head down, arm raised. In the corner, a second shape at the door. In the margin, a sentence scrawled fast. You promised again. He looks up. The woods listen. The wind rearranges leaves like a drunk sorter of mail. He puts the picture in his pocket. He turns toward the chapel and begins to walk. Morning makes the chapel look mild, like a place where children once colored under supervision. Vera waits inside with a thermos steaming. He takes the cup she offers and accepts heat into his hands. Coffee gives the mouth something human to do. They do not fill the air with talk. They stack chairs out of the way. They pull up a section of warped floor where dust outlines a square. Beneath lies dirt, tamped by many feet. Someone kept a room under this room not to hide it, but to give. The darken a dress so the light could find it. Vera kneels. She digs with the seriousness of someone who has planted and exhumed, who knows earth as more than scenery. Miles joins, palms scooping a tempo. The dirt gives peanuts of glass, a paper clip, a button from a service coat, a little tin wolf a child might have traded for gum. The wolf feels warm. He passes it to her. She pockets it. They hit stone, a small slab. Someone carved a moon into it and crossed it with a line. Vera clears the edges and sets her hands. He sets his. They lift. The slab comes up like a stubborn memory. Under it a pocket of air breathes once. He expects bone. He expects fur. He expects the kind of relic men build languages around. The hole gives them none of that. The hole gives them a mirror, small, hand-sized, wrapped in cloth that once was red, and now is rust. Vera unwraps it with her fingertips. The glass stares, back dim and scuffed. He leans, and for a second sees not himself, not the room, not the woman collecting herself beside him. He sees a street lamp in fog, the weak geometry of a childhood bedroom, a young soldier in a foreign stairwell, a bar, with a jukebox that eats quarters, a red door swelling like a throat, a man named Jonah with mud in his laugh. Each image flashes like cards in a hand slammed on a table. The mirror is not a window, the mirror is a witness. He holds it up and the chapel tilts. He understands with a terrible calm that the thing that claws its way into his nights is not a curse laid by moon or monster. It is the mind building a shape with teeth to carry the parts of him that cannot stand the open air. He gave it his worst, and it returned the favor by keeping score. The calendar lied because the mind told it to. The body transformed because it wanted something strong enough to lift what the man refused to name. He breathes. The air comes all the way in for the first time since the desert. The breath carries the smell of damp wood and coffee and iron nails, and a woman who chose to stay angry instead of going numb. He hears the bell above them vibrate in wind that does not exist. Vera closes her hand over the mirror. "Name it," she says. Not a question, a ritual. He sets the mirror down on the dirt and places both palms on either side. He bows his head, without ceremony. He says the names, the service names, the home names, the ones he carried and the ones he dropped. He says Jonah last, and the room holds it for him in a way that is not forgiveness. Not yet, but is not emptiness either. He feels the itch rise in his gums, the old itch that comes when the body thinks a roar will do what an apology cannot. He lets the itch ride to the crown of his head and fall off. He does not feed it, he does not fight it, he lets it pass like weather. The room changes its mind about him. The boards stop listening for lies. The red door across the way looks like paint again. The bell looks like a bell, not a blade. He pulls the dog tag from his pocket and sets it on the mirror. He presses it there with his thumb until the chill of the metal becomes warmth. The engraved name prints briefly in his skin, Hale. He leaves the tag and steps back. Vera closes the cloth around both objects, wraps them together with a piece of twine she pulls from her jacket, and knots the twine with the grim grace of someone tying off a wound. She lowers the bundle into the hole and sets the stone back. They press earth into the seams until the seam disappears. They sit on the floor with their backs against the pew, and the room breathes with them. He laughs once, a sound with no teeth. She does not echo it. She lets it be his. Outside, the day lifts its pale head. The woods wait without malice. The world looks the same in the way a face looks the same after a haircut and a shower. Details small, relief large. They walk to the clearing, The triangle stones hold their positions like sentries who learned patience. The Polaroid from this morning warms in his pocket. He sets it on the middle stone, and the sun decides to live for a second. The picture bleaches a fraction, and the blurred woman sharpens into a shape with a jaw he knows. The handwriting remains. "You promised. I can keep this one," he says. He means it, and the sentence does not feel like a trick. They stand without. The bell and no hum rises to fight them. A bird flings itself from a branch and remembers how to be a bird. The wind does the soft, ungainly thing of carrying leaves a few feet and putting them back down badly. Like a father learning a dance. They return to the chapel and sweep the floor, because sweeping is an action with a beginning and an end. They drink what remains of the coffee. They speak in sentences that know when to stop. When the sun leans west, he walks to the motel and opens the red door to find a room, not a mouth. The tape recorder sits where he left it. He presses play and hears only his own breathing, and then, after minutes of patience, 5 words he did not record with his voice. "You are not the moon." He rewinds, and the words sit there again, as simple and heavy as a brick. He lets them anchor the night where the calendar cannot. He writes them in the notebook, and then writes the date with the clean confidence of a man willing to be corrected by the sky. Dusk pools in the parking lot. He does not tape his wrists, he does not bag the mirror, he does not drink. He sits in the chair and pays attention to his breath until the breath pays attention back. When the itch stirs, he nods to it like a neighbor passing on the stairs. When the bones remember their trick, he lets the memory ache and then loosen, a knot worked with quiet fingers. He keeps his hands open, he keeps his teeth in his mouth. The night crosses the room and nothing opens that he does not open. Somewhere across town, a bell rings for a service no one attends. The sound lifts and settles and lifts again. He sleeps. He dreams he is running in a forest he knows not to chase, not to flee, but because running is another way of saying the body chose to live. He wakes before dawn with his heart beating like a bird in a box and opens the window to let it out. He stands in the cold and watches the light try the horizon. Like a key, he counts breaths without writing it down. The breath becomes the metronome. The metronome governs the hour. The hour agrees to be a day. Behind him, the mirror hangs uncovered. It reflects a man with a scar that looks like a moon on his shoulder. The man lifts his hand. The reflection lifts with him. No lag, no smile too wide, no teeth he did not grow with his own choices. He says nothing. He does not bargain. He makes coffee. He steps out into a morning that carries frost in the grass like confession. The world gives him the sound of tires on wet road, a crow the color of a bad idea, a stray dog that watches him and decides he is not a story worth telling. The moon does not remember him. That is its nature. He does not need it to. He remembers himself. He remembers Jonah Hale and Vera and the chapel and the red room and the way the bell cut through the night like a hard kindness. He remembers that a werewolf is a shape a man wears when he believes only teeth can carry grief. He remembers he owns other shapes. He walks to the clearing one last time and stands in the triangle with his hands at his sides. He breathes until the breath is the only clock again. He thanks the stones for standing. He leaves them to their work. By noon, the sun climbs out of its mood. By evening, he will sleep in a room that does not lick his hands. On some future night, the itch will return, and he will sit with it until it leaves, like a bad guest learning the house rules. He will write new rules. He will fail them sometimes. He will try again. The story ends without a howl. The story ends with a man stepping out of a room and closing a door that is only red because someone chose the can that day. The story ends with footsteps in gravel that do not change shape. The story ends with breath. The breath keeps time. The time holds. The calendar follows. The moon keeps its memory to itself, and that is kindness too. If the moon ever forgets your name, don't remind it. Subscribe to Whispering Narratives for more stories that remember what you'd rather forget.